Hello and welcome to Cycling Weekly's Friday race preview. My name's Simon Richardson, this is Henry Robert Shaw, and today we're going to look at the races coming up. Tomorrow is Milan-San Remo, and Monday we see the start of the Volta at Catalunya. So first of all, we're going to start with Milan-San Remo, the first monument of the season. A 292 kilometre race from Milan south down to the coast and then finishing in San Remo, just near the French-Italian border. It's the first big classic of the year. And the big question is, will it be a big bunch sprint or will a group force the split on the famous last climb of the Poggio? Henry, what are you looking forward to tomorrow?
Well, bookies putting this as a two-horse race really. Peter Sagan and Fernando Gaviria are the two big favourites that we've really got to look out for.
I think Peter Sagan is pretty much a favourite for every race he's in.
Enters,
isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, you can't ignore him. So what are you thinking?
I'm going to be really boring. I'm going to go for Sagan.
You think you can win it?
I mean, he's such a versatile rider. He's going so well so far this year. He's won Kerner.
Yeah.
He was second on Loop and Noisblad. He got 2 stage wins at Torino.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so hard to bet against him, really. And you've also got to think it's going to come down to a big bunch sprint at the end.
Why do you think it'll be a bunch sprint?
I think, well, first of all, it usually is. I mean, look at the last 3 years, it's been a big bunch sprint. Arnaud Demar won last year, John Degenkolb the year before that. They've also been resurfacing the Poggio.
You said, yeah.
In the this week, so
it's going to make it easier for people to maintain a high speed up there, isn't it? Sitting in the bunch.
If it wasn't fast enough, anyway. I mean, this is a sort of climb where they brake on the corners because they're going so fast on this thing. So
about 22 miles. I think the Strava KOM is currently owned by Nibali. 6 minutes 2 seconds up the Poggio, which is a 3.7 kilometre climb, and that is an average of 22.5 miles an hour up a climb. It's only about 4% gradient, so it's not that steep, but it does come at the end of
after 280 kilometres.
Exactly,
it's not a bad time, really, is it?
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. In fact, all the top 15 times on Strava from last year's race, so it's obviously a pretty quick one. But yeah, last 2 years has been a sprint. 3 years before that was a small group forcing clear with the Poggio attack. But traditionally, it is very much a sprinter's race. If it's not a sprinter, it's kind of someone who can win from a group, like Cholek, Simon Gerrans, Matt Goss. He was in a break, but he was a bunch sprinter.
The last solo victory was Fabian Cancellara in 2008, and even then he, I think if memory serves me correctly, he went clear on the flat bit after the Poggio.
Yeah, because there is a bit of a run into the finish line in San Remo, isn't there? Yeah. Of course, big question traditionally is, what is the best build-up race for Milan-San Remo? Is it Paris-Nice that finishes the week before, or is it Torino-Adriatico? The last 10 years, it's split 50-50. That 5 of the winners have come from Paris-Nice, 5 from Torino. But interestingly, of the last 6 years, 5 out of the last 6 have come from Paris-Nice. Perhaps as Torino has maybe had a harder route with some bad weather, and it's harder for riders to recover from a race that only finishes on the Tuesday, and that does do some pretty big days.
But then if you look at this year's Paris-Nice, that's an absolute brute of a route.
It was.
I mean, the penultimate day was a summit finish at 1,700 metres.
Yeah.
Big transfers. Yeah. Rubbish weather at the start of the week. That was a really hard race, and probably actually harder than Torino.
I think it's more that in Paris-Nice recently and this year that it's just had more sprinters in Paris-Nice. They've had more sprint stages.
Yeah.
And the last 3 San Remos have come down to a sprint, so maybe it's just skewed it that way. But of the favourites, we've got Sagan and Gaviria, 9-2 and 5-1. They were both at Torino. John Degenkolb's third favourite. These are odds from yesterday, by the way. He was at Paris-Nice. Then you've got Buhani, Christophe and Demare at 14-1. So pretty much all sprinters up there in the favourites with the bookies. Just outside that, 16-1, we have Mark Cavendish, who amazingly it was 8 years ago he won this race. Can't believe that. What do you think Cav's chances are?
Well, he hasn't been going too well this year. I mean, look at the results. He's got 1 stage win, the Abu Dhabi Tour, and nowhere to be seen at Torino. So whether he's keeping something back,
I think it was a big story in his 2009 win in Milan-San Remo. It was all about the bluffing in Torino. There was one day when he got dropped on a climb, but what you didn't see, because it wasn't on TV I don't think, was that he was just cruising along in the laughing group, not really trying, and there was other days when he said that he he was going okay, and he was passing the likes of Tom Boonen on the climb, but he basically didn't contest any finishes because he didn't want anyone to know how well he was going. So is he bluffing again? Don't know. He had a big year last year. He probably had a well-deserved bit of time off at the end of the season. So how well is he going? Over 300 kilometres? Not that sure, but it's going to be interesting to see. I think there might be a bit of bluffing going on in the Cavendish camp this year. So I think I would be keeping an eye out for him.
There's a few predictions coming in. I mean, we've got Shane Dennis-Pearson, who's with saying that Cavendish will win. One person we haven't mentioned so far is Tom Boonen.
Yeah.
Last ever Milan-San Remo.
But fully focused on Paris-Roubaix.
Yes.
So yeah, is he focused on this? Don't know. Will he be working for Gaviria? I think I'm very interested to see what Gaviria does. Last year, I was at the World Track Champs last year in London. He of course won the Omnium. He was just heads and shoulders above absolutely everybody else. And he did it on a diet of McDonald's and Cocoa Pops. We witnessed him eating that in his hotel. The Omnium runs really late in the Track Champs in the day, and a couple of other journalists saw him walking into the hotel about 1 o'clock in the morning, stuffing his face full of McDonald's, probably the only thing that was open at night. And then for breakfast, keen to see what he was eating, they watched him pour 3 mini packs of Cocoa Pops into a cereal bowl.
Well, those mini packs are quite small.
They
so
are.
Probably
I don't know how you get 3 in a bowl, but that was his diet. And then just 2 weeks later, after going so well on the track, racing over short distances, he looked really good at the end of a 300 kilometre race, but got taken out by a crash.
Yeah.
So he's just got that talent and that youth to get him through.
Ian Lawrence making the point that the best team will win, not the best individual. And
So
I think
who is that team, Ian?
Well,
let us know who you
we're
think
talking
that is.
about Gaviria and Tom Boonen. Quick step
looking
floors.
strong.
Boonen,
Who they got?
Alaphilippe, Gaviria, Gilbert, Mathieu Trentin. There's
That's a good
the whole
team,
team's
isn't
good
it?
for him, to be honest. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you want in Milan-San Remo. You want options. So you want someone who can maybe, at the Cipressa, if something goes over the top with a few threatening riders in there, maybe you can get someone in there. And that, even if that move doesn't go away and doesn't stay to the finish, which hasn't done for a long, long time, the riders back in the pack can just sit up.
Yeah.
They don't have to chase. The team can take it easy and just make sure they're in the best position possible for the bottom of the Poggio, where the race really gets going.
That's key, isn't it? So the Cipressa is a 5.6 kilometre climb, comes just before the Poggio, after about 260 kilometres. And if the bunch cruises up the Cipressa without too many problems, it saves the legs of the sprinters for the Poggio. If it gets hard up the Cipressa and it splits and sprinters are having to close gaps or just fight to hold the wheel, that can take the zip out of their legs for the Poggio and then the sprint itself. So sometimes, I remember a couple of years ago, Cavendish was in a small group at the end, but the zip had just completely gone from his legs because he'd worked so hard to stay there. So it's the Cipressa and the Poggio that if it's really hard up those climbs, it will just dull the speed of the sprinters, which means someone like a Gerrans or a Gilbert who can handle those climbs better, is in much better shape when they get to if they get to the finish in the front group. So it's really key what happens on those 2 climbs. Not necessarily someone getting away, but in terms of what it does, how much damage it does to the sprinters who really have to work hard on those climbs sometimes. So they're really interesting to watch.
Of course, there's also been a race in the past that's been really affected by the weather.
Yeah,
so
massively.
A few years ago when it snowed and everyone had to climb onto team buses and go down to the Mediterranean. That's not going to happen this year.
No, the weather forecast is 20 degrees and sunny with some clouds, so a very light headwind, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
sort of head crosswind, so it won't have. So it won't be a big tailwind. So if someone gets away, then they've got a gap, and then the tailwind will help them out.
Yeah.
You won't see that. So
it's got bunch sprint written all over it with those conditions, doesn't it? Really.
I really think so. Yes.
Yeah. So who are you going to go for again?
I'm going to go for Sagan because
you're sticking with Sagan.
I think any way Sagan could win this race. I mean, you've got riders such as Greg Van Avermaet, who might not be up there in a bunch sprint, but will surely try and attack on the Poggio. And presuming Sagan's in the right place, he should be able to go with those attacks. If there's a group that goes well on the Poggio and Sagan's in there, then he can sit in and he can work it when however.
Sagan will never sit in; he'll always attack.
Oh, yeah.
But he's so heavily marked, isn't he? Because everyone
Yeah.
knows. I mean, Sagan will be top 5. You pretty much bet your house on it. What about Ben Swift? Last year second, year before that 13th, year before that third. So it's the kind of race that obviously suits him, and he's looking for a result for his new team. 33-1. He was at yesterday.
He always flies under the radar, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, looking at his results from the previous few years, that Milan-San Remo top 5 always sticks out.
Yeah.
He might not do an awful, no offence to Ben Swift, but he might do a huge amount for the rest of the year. But he gets up there with Ben.
He keeps falling off, breaking his collarbone, doesn't he? But
yeah,
he's got a good chance. It obviously suits him. He obviously trains well during the winter, and he's good in a little bunch kick like that. I think people who we haven't mentioned, maybe Caleb Ewan, coming out of the Australian summer in good form. Maybe he's a year older now, so might have a bit of better able to soak up that distance. And I think Viviani might be one to go for. We haven't had an Italian win since Pozzato in 2006, so we're long overdue.
And we're not backing Pozzato for another win. Unfortunately
No.
Well,
some people would love to see it, but Viviani I think is an outsider. That maybe Bosenhagen. We got some more people. Dan Hornsby, always loved Cav, raw talent, excels at winning. Sagan's such a cool mo. Won't finish that. Jane Dunning and Pete Osborne think it'll be a bunch sprint.
I'm glad they're with us.
Joey Geever says Peter is on a winning streak. He'll outwit them like a fox. So yeah, a lot of people going for Sagan, and you can't ignore him. Unless he falls off or pulls out sick, I'm sure he'll be on the podium or top 5. I'm tempted to go for a pure sprinter, and I'm thinking, not too much an outside bet, but Buhani.
Yeah.
Good winning knocker across.
Exactly, yeah.
Christophe de Meer had a win, didn't he, in Paris-Nice?
Yeah.
But defending a title is not easy. Of course, winning last year, definitely not holding on to a card going at the Cipressa. Absolutely not. Christophe is up there as well in the odds, but I haven't seen much from him for a while. He needs to get his mojo back. Really.
Same with Degenkolb, really, another former winner. I haven't seen too much from him this season, so it's a little bit of an unknown.
Of course, on his way back from his really bad hand injury sustained about a year ago, isn't he? But yeah, he is fancied. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting race on Eurosport from about 2:30.
Yeah, I think go about the last 100 kilometres, which you don't really want to watch the first 200 kilometres. It's not the most scintillating.
It's a bit like a world champs in that respect, isn't it? You've got all that build up where really nothing happens, but it just helps to build up the excitement towards the end of the race, which is makes it all the more exciting.
I think if you're a bit pushed for time, maybe tune in around. They go over the Trade Capo, which with around 60 kilometres to go, which is where the racing will really kick off. There are 3 sort of small climbs over headlands along the Mediterranean coast, and that's where the pace really starts to ramp up a little bit before the Cipressa. So that's, if you want to make sure your Saturday afternoon is sorted, that is where to tune in, and that's where the racing will really kick off.
We've got Julian Cannon, who says Gaviria is going to take off and do a famous, or trademark should I say, long sprint. He'll take off for the last 50 metres. Tom Bradbury is going for Greg Van Avermaet. I'm not sure it's a sort of race that suits Van Avermaet, because he's not the quickest in a big bunch.
No, but if it,
group, is he?
I mean, if he can
he get away?
He's the sort of rider that will get into. If a group goes on the Poggio, he'll be there.
Yeah, he'll be on the Poggio.
But I don't know. You look at the other riders who will be there.
Yeah.
Sagan.
Yeah.
And he out-sprinted him at Omloop Noiseblad, but this is a very different race to that.
Yeah. If some fast guys make it over the Poggio, which they usually do, then Greg Van Avermaet is going to struggle.
That's a good.
Ian Lawrence says it's best to get out on your bike before the race heats up. True. Get out your bike in the morning, get home, get your feet up, and watch the race with tired legs, and then the riders feel.
We also had a suggestion earlier about Sam Bennett.
Yeah.
Who is, Bora Hansgrohe don't have the strongest squad, but Sam Bennett will be.
Outside of Sagan, no they don't. Yeah, be interesting to see. And Scott Thwaites is riding.
Yes.
British guy, maybe his first monument.
He's been helped out a lot by Cav.
Yeah, we had a story online the other week, didn't we? Cav is saying, come on Scott, you need to be winning some big races. Great result in Strada, 10th, was it?
Yep.
So he's definitely stepped up.
I think it might be maybe a little bit too early for him to really be up there, but he's capable.
He's got a good kick, hasn't he? I mean, it's sort of rider that this route suits, but perhaps the quality of the field is a bit too high for him. But it'd be great to see if he can get up there. Depends how hard he has to work for Cav. He'd be a good lead-out man if he can stay there. Right, so onto the Catalunya. So if you want to let us know who you think is going to win Volta Catalunya, which is the Spanish stage race that starts on Monday.
Yep.
Runs from Monday through to Sunday, all taking part in the northeast of Spain, up in the Catalonia region. And it's Spain's oldest stage race. It's a 97th edition this year. A very, very Spanish race of its history. It's been won 58 times by Spanish riders, 11 French winners and 10 Italian. One British winner in Robert Miller, 1985. Last year, won by Nairo Quintana, who's not riding this year. It was a slim win over Contador, Dan Martin and Richie Porte. Chris Froome was down in 8th place, and it was where Hugh Carthy made a bit of a breakthrough, finishing in the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he'll be returning with his in Cannondale this year as he stepped up to World Tour. The field is stacked with GC riders, isn't it?
This is
it's a really good,
absolutely
really
stacked field. Alejandro Valverde's there, Chris Froome, Adam Yates, Alberto Contador, Julian Alaphilippe, Stephen Kreuzweig, Rafael Majka, and Roman Bardet, and they're just that's just a few of the favourites we've picked out.
Yeah, it's a really good field.
I mean, there's riders there who are unknown so far this season, such as Chris Froome. We haven't seen him at all since the Herald Sun Tour. He's been off training in South Africa with Geraint Thomas.
Yeah.
So that is a complete unknown as to what sort of form he will be in. But then you've got riders such as Alberto Contador, who missed out by 2 seconds in Paris-Nice, who we know are in good form. So I think it's shaping up to be an absolute cracker. And the parcours are really hard as well. So
yeah, stage 5 on Friday is really the one to watch. That's the Queen stage, finishes at the top of 1,000-metre climb, and that goes up from sea levels. That is actually a big climb. You know, Alpe d'Huez is higher, but it climbs about the same amount because it goes from a higher base. So that's the one to watch. We've also got a really tough. You spotted, didn't you? The route of the team time.
I know.
Trial.
Well, the stage 2 is a 41-kilometre team time trial with pretty hilly course.
It's all undulating, isn't it?
Yeah, and there could be huge time gaps there.
That could be quite good to watch.
And if we're looking at the teams, I mean, we're talking about Adam Yates. That Orica Scott team is looking really strong for the team time trial.
That's something they're pretty good at as well, isn't it, the team time trial?
Guys like Damien Howson, Svein Tuft, really strong time trialists. And when you look at Team Sky's squad for this race, it's not quite so strong. I mean,
they've gone with more with climbers, haven't they? They've got Wout Powers is in there, Land and Nieve Lopez, Pete Kenneck's riding. So they've gone for. I mean, it's almost a tour team there. That's a really strong team behind Froome, but perhaps not suited to the team time trial. But the whole route is hilly, isn't it?
I mean, the first stage has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 categorised climbs. Although it did come down to a bunch sprint last year somehow, but it's been breakaway in the past. So there's all sorts of different scenarios. The other real big stage to look out for is stage 3, which finishes at La Molina, which is it's always in Catalonia pretty much every year. Dan Martin won it last year, but there's normally pretty small time gaps there because there's sort of the way the climb plays out. It's a long uphill stretch, and then about 3 or 4k from the lines are downhill, and then it ramps back up. So quite a lot of the time, the riders wait for that last ramp to launch their attack. So that might be a bit of a slow burner, but it can usually open a few time gaps of a few seconds. And also, maybe putting that team time trial in there the day before might mean that riders like Froome or like Contador might have a bit of time to make up. So maybe they'll want to take that opportunity on stage 3 to gain a bit of time over their rivals that they might have lost in the team time trial.
It's interesting looking through the previous winners for Catalunya. Although it is very much a race for the Grand Tour GC riders, it's not that often won by them. Quintana won it last year, went on to win the Volta, and then back in 2009 Valverde won the Volta. It's really a race that suits the Ardennes riders. So you've got winners like Rodriguez, Dan Martin, Abbassini, Rodriguez again, Valverde won it in 2009. So this is, if this race is a gauge of anything, it's who's going to be up there in Flèche, Walloon and Liège. We've got maybe Amstel, but probably not so much now.
A few of you saying Julien Alaphilippe, who, if we're talking about Ardennes riders, he's certainly one of them. I mean, he showed he was in great form at Paris-Nice this week. Strong time trial, fell apart a little bit on the penultimate summit finish. So it would really be interesting to see how he copes in this, which is a really strong, really difficult stage race.
Yeah.
Whether
if he's gonna step up to being a Grand Tour rider, which he may be eyeing in his career. Also interesting to see if Romain Bardet can get around without getting disqualified. He was a late entry into this after being disqualified from Paris-Nice for getting a very big toe from the team car. So this will be a gauge of his form. A lot of talk about him this year, a lot of excitement about him and how he'll be going building up to the Tour de France. Predictions for this one, as is traditional, we're going to have a prediction who's going to win.
I have to say Alberto Contador is looking really strong this year.
He's looking better.
I mean, he's
rejuvenated.
He's been in 3 stage races this year. You've put away the Abu Dhabi Tour. He lost the Ruta del Sol by 1 second, and he lost Paris by 2 seconds. So I'm backing him to get those couple of extra seconds. And
I think it'll be him or Valverde.
Yeah.
I think it's the mountains aren't high enough, aren't too high to really hurt him. So I think it's he'll be up there, I'm sure. But yeah, Contador's definitely looking good.
And I think with the sort of parkour that we've got here, is that there's 2 summit finishes, but there's quite a lot of maybe a climb 20k from the line, 30k from the line, and what we saw from Contador Paris-Nice is that what we've seen from him throughout his career really is that he's not averse to going for a bit of a long one and taking a few seconds where you don't expect him.
Lots of you voting for both Froome and Alaphilippe in this one. Ian Lawrence, who will be in Barcelona, he's going for Dan Martin from 2013.
I mean, I think Dan Martin's a good bet. He looked, again, like Contador, he looked strong at Paris-Nice. Yeah. And that team time trial, he's got a half-decent quick-step team.
Quick-step are always good in the team time. Like Orica, they're always strong.
Yeah.
And Movistar, they'll be the 3 teams to watch in the team time trial.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Movistar have got Castroviejo, Marc Soler, who looked really strong at Paris-Nice as well on that last stage. Yeah. So there are lots of options there. I think that team time trial, it might not be amazing to watch on TV, but it's going to set us up for a good
could be good. Look at that. If there's sort of small twisty roads, which that profile suggests they might be, could be a good one to watch. That definitely doesn't look like a dual carriage race for out and back, does it?
No, I don't think it is.
Fast team time trial like they often are.
Yeah.
I think it could be a bit more interesting than that.
Looking at some of the sprinters in the race, there's not too many options. I mean, you've got Andre Greipel's there, Nasser Behani's there, but there are not too many big sprinters there, probably because it's not really a sprinters race, but there might be a couple of stages that come down to this.
There's a couple of downhill finishes, isn't there?
Yes.
Climbs, whether or not they can get over those climbs to contest the finish.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's the last stage in Barcelona,
which is circuits at the end of the 7 or 8 circuits.
Circuits up a very small climb. There are it normally splits.
I don't know. Duick, which I think they often use, don't they? Yeah.
I think it often splits mainly because there's a lot of riders who it's the last stage, and frankly, done now. But if someone's 1 or 2 seconds behind, then there's always the opportunity to get away. And also you've got time bonuses, so someone who can pick up a couple of time bonuses on that last stage could make a big impact on the overall.
We've got some more votes coming for Froome, Zakharin, who we haven't really mentioned, or Contador.
Rafael Majka, another one.
Yeah.
Sort of haven't seen too much of him. He was pretty anonymous at Tirreno.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, we're still in mid-March,
so it's early days, isn't it?
You can look at riders like Zakharin and Majka and Froome as well. Froome doesn't have a great record in this race because he's always looking towards later goals. So maybe it might be a slight outsider. Yeah. Someone like Adam Yates.
I'm really interested to see how Hugh Carthy goes.
Yeah.
Last year at Caja Rural, he had no pressure. He could just go for it, and And he did, and he had a fantastic year. So now he's stepped up to World Tour, and they might be expecting a bit more from him. So still very young, but it'd be really interesting to see, because it's a different ball game suddenly. He may not be leader, because I think Talansky's going.
Talansky's there, Roland's there.
So yeah, he won't be a leader, but if 9th last year shows he can do it.
I think there'll be opportunities, because frankly Cannondale will take anything they can get at the moment. I think they're still without a win so far this year.
Right.
They've got a couple of second places maybe, but if Hugh Carthy is given the opportunity, then I think he obviously knows the area pretty well. He knows the roads, so I think there's definitely a chance for him to pick up a stage win.
Yeah, be good to see. Right, thank you very much. I think that just about wraps it all up.
Yep.
So enjoy the racing, and we'll see you again on a Friday for another race preview soon.